DJ Derek, thank you very much for being with us today. When were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in St Andrews in Bristol, a couple of miles from where we are now in St Paul's. Well, I was born in 1941, just after the Battle of Britain. So we were very much aware due to rationing and everything else. In fact, I think my first memory, I would have been in a pram with my twin sister, sitting that age. I seem to remember a military parade coming down Gloucester Road. I think that must have been D-Day. After that, I had a very, very happy childhood in spite of rationing and all that. We didn't know any more because we hadn't experienced any better than that. We had the cricket ground, Gloucester cricket ground just around the corner, so we spent a lot of time in there as well. I love cricket. I think that's why I became enamoured with the West Indian people.
Good cricket.
Yeah, a mutual love of music and cricket.
What were your earliest musical experiences? Who inspired you initially?
Well, of course, I was just at that age when rock and roll came in, which is the first music that defined the teens as almost a separate race of people rather than being young adults.
Yeah.
And remember listening to Bill Haley, amazing, there's no band played like that since that. He had a record producer who used to produce records for Louis Jordan, who some considered to be the grandfather of rock and roll. He played urban rhythm and blues, although the Americans called it the race charts at the time. And then they called it R&B, and kids call soul music R&B, but that's another story. But yeah, listening to music, it was either on my brother's little transistor radio, American Forces Network, or Radio Luxembourg, or two-way family favourites on the BBC, which is the only time you ever heard anything like black American music, apart from the Goon Show, who had the Ray Ellington Quartet. But I don't know why I was listening to white rock and roll and ended up playing in a scuffle group playing drums. But I always preferred listening to the black music. It wasn't just three guitars and the drummer. The wonderful horn section, saxophones, trumpets, trombones, and people who sang from below their throats. They didn't shout the words, it came from the heart and the soul. Ray Charles was the most fantastic voice I'd ever heard in my life when I first heard him on AFN back in the late 50s. Latterly, Aretha Franklin's a female singer. Then we had the larger soul singers like Sam Cooke. But they all had this distinctive, well, it was gospel basically. It still happens today. Some wonderful young black singers in Bristol and all over the country who learn to project through singing in church. And the majority of white people and white musicians, if they aspire to sing like that, because they started too late and just through listening to it, they never managed to achieve. Very few, there are exceptions, but very few have got, to me, that depth, that emotion which a black singer can project. I don't know why I feel like that. I do very strongly, which is why I do what I do now. I've always wanted to project that to a wider audience than you'd ever hear on the average BBC show.
I learned through a bit of research, you used to play some of your shows behind the shutter.
Oh, that was much later on, yeah, because I didn't know I was going to be a DJ when I was making this vast record collection.
Right.
By that time, we did have a pub in Bristol which accepted that DJs in, and I picked up a lot of music knowledge, and then had to import some of the music to actually get my hands on it just to listen to. And then the Bamboo Club opened in Bristol in the 60s, one of the finest West Indian clubs outside of London. And that's when I saw the original ska artists like Desmond Decker, Toots and the Maytals, even Bob Marley. I was an accountant at the time. I packed up music playing as a drummer, and I was an accountant, and domestic matters got on top of me. Don't want to go into detail about that, but I ended up handing in my notice because he wanted me to move to Birmingham. Pardon me. Much as I love the people that I knew in Birmingham, I hate the city. Forgive me, Bram, I've just played up there this last weekend. But it's not the most attractive city in England by any means. And by that time I was essentially a single man. I'd lost both parents, marriages had crashed. So I handed him a notice and I didn't know what I was going to do. I was well into my 30s by then, and for my upbringing, being on the dole was something almost shameful. And then there was a pub not too far from here called the Star and Garter, which was already an established West Indian pub. And the landlord of that gave it up to take over the Inkerman, a much bigger pub. And a Jamaican bus driver took over the Star and Garter. He'd been a friend of mine for quite a time. And he asked me, he said, well, come man, you're a little beer money man, you know you got the tune, come down and play them. They had a Jamaican bakery next door, which unfortunately closed now. And I used to play in there, say, Friday lunchtime, Saturday lunchtime, bring all the old 60s, 50s records with me. And the workers from the bakery would come in, covered in flour, and I'd drop all this old music. Yeah, that's great, man. You bring back some sweet memory sound, boy, and we feel me back a yard. I thought, right, I'm DJ Derek Sweet Memory Sounds. Then another guy opened a nightclub, Jamaican, because even at that time in the 70s, a lot of places, black people still didn't feel welcome, and when they did go in there, they didn't want to hear the music they were listening to. So, particularly the older generation, the first generation to come here, who had seen no Irish, no dogs, no blacks, and were suspicious about going downtown and mixing anyway. So this chap opened another West Indian nightclub alongside the Bamboo Club. I say alongside, not physically, it was on the other side of the river, which was another problem. And it was called the Turntable Club. And he came in and asked me, because of the reputation I built up by playing in the Star and Garter, to DJ for him. In fact, his words were, if you don't come and DJ for me, I'm going to have to go to Jamaica to get a DJ, because all the youth, they play for themselves. You can play for everybody, including the big people.
You were unique at that time, I guess.
Yeah, but because I'd entered it, albeit as a white man, through the eyes and ears of the black community, nobody in Bristol turned it was no novelty that they had a white DJ. When I started to play in the nightclub, it became a problem, because you get coaches of people from Birmingham or London. Why have you got a white DJ? On the assumption that no white man could know anything about black music. You wait till you hear him play. That got to the extent where I actually sat down in Bedo's barber shop opposite the Inkerman, with his permission and the people who knew me in there, to actually tune in on Jamaican, called patois, and I call them emerging language. And I think, if you remember Louise Bennett, the Jamaican poetess, she would agree. There again, that's another story. And the message was, keep your ears open and your eyes open and your mouth shut till you're ready to say something.
Do you think adopting the patois and that?
Oh, it's a great help.
On the stage, yeah.
Because we used to keep this shutter shut. Now going back to your original question, in the nightclub, so that when people came in from wherever the coaches had come in from, I just welcomed them over the microphone. Welcome people to the Turntable Club. Settle down, meet your friend, meet your family, have a drink, have some tea, and when I'm ready, I'll make you dance. And then usually I had a series of records which were sequenced, mainly instrumentals, of tunes that everybody would know with a reggae beat. And people, and they'd be watching and see the feet start to tap, head starting to nod, drinks to go back, plates to be cleared away, tables are starting to be moved. It was like being in control of a coiled spring, and I picked the most popular record of the day, which I knew because of the amount of extent I travelled. Put that on, and you ram up the volume, place began to explode, and I play that, and as it was finishing, I'd come in with the next monster hit of the day, and everybody back again. Then I'd slow back the panel, and then, Jesus Christ, it's a white man. Too late, I had them eaten out of my hand. It was a wonderful experience. The vast majority of them very, very positive. I've had the occasional grumble by somebody, oh, you white man, you can't play black people music. But that's well overshadowed by the respect I now find I've got within the industry at large. And that crept up on me. It's still a surprise now to find I'm filling places all over, literally all over the country. And ending up there finding there's a queue, and I think, who else have they got on? And it's me.
We recently visited Ajax Blues Club. You also visited these, like the blues clubs and shebeens back in the day?
Back in the 70s, 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
Almost every side road had a basement with a blues club, a shebeen, up to a posh, big people house party. The only thing they all had in common is basically they were all illegal because they all sold liquor without a licence. But the reason I touched on why they existed is that generation of people, if they went into town and weren't abused, they couldn't hear the music they wanted to listen to anyway. So that was their way of being able to be among their own community, recreate as far as you can in this climate what they experienced back in the Caribbean. I never played in the bamboo club. A lot of people have memories which makes them think that I did. I used to go in there regularly, and back in the 60s, that's where I could then hear Jamaican DJs playing in front of a dancing crowd rather than in a little pub. And that informed me of how to play the music, if you like. You don't just put a record on and let it play. They've normally got a team of people behind the sound system. One of them's the engineer, one of them's the selector, one of them's the DJ, the toaster, whatever. And I learned to do all that myself. The first time I ever played with Laura Lake, he said, good God, man, it usually takes a team of people to do what you do. Because, you learn to start on the treble, and being a drummer and having a great sense of rhythm, I knew how to feed the bass lines in. So you were playing a record as if it was a painting that you were actually improving on the original, which is where dub came from. I couldn't play dub in the club where I started playing. Nothing connected with Rasta or dub or anything pertaining to ganja would be allowed. No locks.
What is your definition of a dubplate?
A dubplate?
Yeah.
I've never actually owned one because basically, although they started producing them in London, it's the remix of a recording which is becoming very popular or has become popular. So that you go in and you pay the sound engineer to remix you an exclusive copy in the way that Lee Perry used to sit stoned out of his head and remix the backing tracks he'd just done for a particular singer. He'd whip in the bass, take out the drums, put the vibrator and echo and all this. To me that's dub. When you talk about dubstep, I'm going to be quite honest now, I don't know what dubstep is. It seems that everybody, when I ask them, they're playing a totally different type of music. Oh, that's dubstep. I like the t-shirt actually. So stop pretending you love dubstep.
Do you listen to much?
Well, yeah, but as I say, each time somebody describes it as dubstep, it's got a totally different beat from the previous one. Now, reggae's got a great variety of beats. Steppers, rockers, one drop, all these things. But it's still definable. Whereas, I don't know, dubstep seems to have elements of drum and bass, it seems to have elements of jungle, and I can't get on with electrically processed music. I hate jungle. I'm not too keen on drum and bass. I've never seen the music before where came out, and then you had live musicians suddenly recreating electronic music on stage. Alright, maybe it's my age, but I think the precursor of that was probably Massive Attack.
You worked with it?
I've worked occasionally, I've never actually worked with Massive Attack, but Daddy G, I didn't know at the time, neither did he. Obviously he was about 14 years old alongside the record producer Nelly Hooper. They used to sit outside the Star and Garter when they were about 14 or 15. I'd be having a drink and playing the music for his dad inside. And it was only after BBC Two made the film about me that I was contacted by Daddy, and he said, "You were one of our biggest influences when we used to listen to you back then."
I had a question about women in reggae back then. Who were the female artists?
Oh,
Reggae
right, going back to studio, to ska music, Studio One, when Copton up back in '58. You had, first of all, you can't necessarily recall all the names, you had people like Dorian Schaefer, who's still been singing with the Scatterlights, Hortense Ellis.
Do you remember any, because I know in Bristol we've got Ashton Court and we've had other festivals, is there a time you remember the way in which reggae kind of became more prominent? Do you remember how that changed in terms of...
Well, it's funny because to all intents and purposes, I was a white DJ, but albeit I hardly ever saw a white face in the venues I was playing. So I wasn't conscious as a white man about this influence affecting what I was doing as a white man, because though I'm white, to all intents and purposes I was black. You know, so I couldn't see, I knew that a lot of black DJs weren't happy in the early days of going out and playing in white places. But I'm so lucky because I was able to merge between the two worlds, well, imperceptibly, if you know what I mean. I'd never felt out of place, even though I was conscious that I was making some people uncomfortable, when I first started to mingle in St. Paul's among the black community. The music made me feel at home. I think generally in the end, my body language meant they didn't think I was a plain clothes or some pimp or something trying to get muscle in on territory or anything. I just became part of that scene. Ajax will tell you that.
Would you say then that as a DJ, you're also in a sense, you feel you have a mission or purpose?
Yes, basically the mission was, why aren't people, my people, hearing this wonderful music that this race of people are making? And that's still basically what I do. I can't play anything I don't like because I never bought anything I didn't like. I didn't know I was going to be a DJ. My music collection reflects the way I feel. And when I moved into St. Paul's permanently into the flat I'm still living at, I actually first of all occupied a first floor flat. I wasn't doing anything, but I had my record collection and everybody else was playing music out their window, so I stuck my stereogram up at the window and started to drop rhythms. I think I'm the only person I've ever heard somebody shout up the road, "Mister, can you turn that up?"